Hello everybody, it's jrobi. I wanted to go over a match here that I had on the free internet chess server. It's against a gentleman named ScaredPawn, and jrobi playing white. And I wanted to go over this game for a couple reasons. Number one, it shows a little bit about how making a rapid change in your strategy can throw your opponent off guard. And I think it's also a really good match that shows if you overcomplicate things, sometimes your opponent will miss the most obvious weakness in his defense. So we're going to go through the match here. I'm jrobi and I'm playing white, and my opponent plays the Sicilian defense. And as many of you know, the Sicilian defense is my most favorite black defense. So I like to play against it for a number of reasons. Number one, if I can find something that works well, I can look out for that as I'm playing black using the Sicilian. So from here, my opponent uses the Sicilian pawn to c5, and I developed knight to f3, so this is standard so far, and he plays pawn to d6, which is also standard Sicilian. Now from here, at this point I play a little bit different move. A lot of times as black, I'll see white players play this variation. Either knight will take or queen will take. And basically what happens is, from that variation, black is able to maintain both center pawns. White loses a center pawn. And that's okay though. Like, I mean, in the Sicilian, that's, you know, what you're going for is black, and it's really not crushing to white at all, because white can still generate a lot of attack capabilities. But instead of getting into that line, what I decided to do was play bishop to c4. So my opponent plays knight to f6, and you'll notice that we both still have our center pawns. He's attacking my pawn on e4. So what I do is I strengthen that pawn up with pawn to d3. And now he plays pawn to d5, forking my bishop and pawn. And from here I just take with the pawn. He recaptures with knight. And as you can see, we both have one center pawn left now. He still has a pawn here, though, on c5, which can impact the center. But I made the decision at this point in the game to just take this knight, and he recaptures with his queen. And I play my c-pawn up now to c4, attacking his queen. So he has to spend a move to move the queen. He regains that, though, with check. I did not want to block with the queen here, and you can probably see why. If I would have blocked with the queen, it would have given him a very nice queen trade that would have forced me to use my king. And although I could still get into a castle position, it would take me 2 moves to do so. So he'd get some tempo there. So instead, I just make use of the nice bishop that I have here, and I play the bishop out to e3. And he plays pawn now to f5, and I could tell that he wants to move his pawn down to f4 because of this bishop pin. So I just castle. And he moves his queen now to d6 because he wants to defend this pawn, because the bishop could have just taken it for free. And I just move my rook now to e1, and he moves his pawn to e6. And I think he did that because he was thinking that I could maybe generate some threats along the e-file, and he wanted to get that queen protecting 2 pieces. And he also had the bishop protecting the pawn in that position. So I've made, now at this point in the game I decided to generate some queenside activity. So what I do is I hit a check here on a4, and he blocks with a bishop, which is what I was expecting, and I move the queen now to a3. So you'll notice that I've got a dark square bishop lined up on this diagonal towards the queen side, as well as the king side. And my knight here, although not really doing anything currently, could swing over to the queen side pretty quickly. And so I wanted to kind of divert some resources over to the queen side. My opponent plays pawn to b6, trying to close up the b file so that his pawns were creating a nice little wall here. And I swing my knight out to c3. So now you can see I'm putting more pieces into the queen side of the board here. Now this knight could technically jump to b5 at some point, even, you know, next move if I wanted to, because it's protected by the pawn. And he plays bishop to e7. And I swing my knight now to a4. Now, what I wanted to do is, you'll notice here on the king side of the board, my opponent has a weak pawn. And behind that pawn is a nice rook, and he's in an uncastled position currently. His resources are fairly centralized. He's got a bishop attacking along that diagonal. He's got a bishop attacking here, and his queen is still in a fairly good position, centralized on the board. But what I wanted to do is I kind of wanted to make my opponent focus a lot on his queen side. So one of the reasons I moved the knight to a4 was because I wanted to give my opponent the impression that I was really trying to drum up something on the queen side. And you'll see exactly what I was trying to do here shortly. So my opponent moves the queen to c7, and now he's diverting some of his resources to the queen side. The number of things he could do here. He could move his pawn to b5, and that would allow his queen to come in quickly. But once I saw that he was now diverting a lot of his attention to the queen side, I moved my queen to c3. And in one move, I am maintaining pressure on the queen side, but I'm also attacking that weak pawn on the king side. So my opponent has to do something about that. So he castles. And from this position here, I play my pawn up to b3. Now the only reason I played my pawn there at that particular time is I wanted to give my opponent the impression that I'm still very interested on a queenside initiative. And it does defend the knight too. So this knight here is defended by the pawn. So it's kind of a dual purpose move. But really my attention is still on the king side. So from here my opponent plays bishop to c6. So he's bringing his bishop into a position that can still attack the queen side but also line up along my king side. And from here I play my knight now to g5. So this is the first time I've really made an obvious move towards the king side of the board. The queen move was kind of a dual purpose move. This is obviously a straight king side initiative. So my opponent plays bishop takes on g2. Now, I could have taken the bishop here. The bishop is not being supported by any piece whatsoever. You know, my thinking was at the time that he probably had something tactical lined up that had to deal with checks and things of that nature. So what I did instead was, if you look at the board here, you're going to see a really nice fork. So I moved my knight to e6, taking his pawn, and I've now forked his rook and his queen. And you'll also see another thing. His bishop is still unprotected, so I could still take his bishop with the king if I wanted to. And my queen is lined up very nicely with that knight. So my opponent's in kind of, I would say, an overload moment, because you'll see what happens here on the next move. My opponent moves queen to d6. And as you can see, that leads to checkmate. So I think what happened, and I really firmly believe this, and I'm looking forward to your guys' comments, is that I think that, you know, my opponent was so focused a lot on my queen side development and my initiatives on the queen side that the subtle threat on the king side just kind of eluded my opponent for the short term. And when you couple that with, when you go back to the fork here on the queen and the rook, so you're threatening taking the queen or the rook, bishop's undefended, and then also we've got a nice little subtle checkmate here. I think it was just an overload. I think that if we would have been playing in a longer match, like you know, 60-minute or 90-minute match, that my opponent would have caught that checkmate. But I think in a 15-minute match, I think that it was just too much at the time, possibly, and the most subtlest threat that could win the game in one move just eluded my opponent due to all the other strategical things that my opponent was thinking on. So I'm looking forward to your feedback on the game and on the match in general. And I enjoyed going over this video, actually. It was a good game, and look forward to hearing your comments, like I said. So take care, and we'll see you next video.